Good morning, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay? I see Emily says hello. Gary says good morning. Oh, Brendan, thank you for supporting the channel. I appreciate it. No question today, just supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. For those of you that are watching down below, if you want to type in a question, there's a little dollar sign. If you want to support the channel and donate to the channel, you can absolutely do that. But in today's video, I wanted to talk specifically about probation, what you can expect, why they do it, why you might fail probation, what happens after you fail probation, and can you get hired somewhere else, how that pans out. Hey, Jim Bob. Hey, Macho Man. Thanks, guys. Thanks for showing up. I know this was kind of last minute, but I'm going to post this after I'm done. But I really like this ability for me to interact with you guys directly. So I figured I would just start doing that. And hey, Daniel, good to see you. And just use these videos, try and go live more often so I can talk to you guys directly, but also make the live videos about a specific topic that you guys might think is useful or you might need. So first live show for me. Every time you have your live videos, I'm in school. Oh, all right. Well, thanks for being here, Macho Man. Daniel, good to see you. So I'm just going to jump right into it. If you guys hear something and you have a question about it, by all means, just throw it in the chat and we'll just go from there. So if you're unfamiliar with the process of probation, it will be your first step wherever you get hired. Typically, the probationary period is usually about one year. Some departments will do a little bit less, at about 6 months. I've heard some departments doing it for as long as 2 years. Your probation, when you're on probation, you are essentially on the bottom rung of the ladder in the hierarchy of a fire department. You are the bottom person. You are going to be the person that's expected to clean the toilets. You are going to be expected to be the person that shows up early and leaves late. You are going to be expected to be the person that doesn't sit around in the recliner all day like the guy that's been there for 25 years. You're going to be expected to be the hustler and always doing these things. Jim Bob says, I can't say. That's no problem, Jim Bob. Feel free to leave whenever you need. So you're going to be expected to be the new guy, the new girl, and you're going to have the crappy duties. And so part of the reason for probation is it's just a long test. The best way and easiest way to think about it is think of it like a tryout. You're going to be doing the same things everybody else on the department is going to be doing. You're going to be going out and fighting fires. You're going to be running EMS calls if that's what you do. You're going to be showing up on rescues. You're going to be a full-on part of the department. But during this 6 months, year, 2 years, however long, they reserve the right to let you go for whatever reason. Let's say they don't need you or they don't think you're performing well. They reserve the right to let you know. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. Departments will do it differently depending on where you're at. So for example, the first department I got hired at, their probationary period, when I came in, there were 5 of us that all got hired at the same time. We were each assigned to a senior firefighter who we would kind of follow around. They would take us under their wing, teach us what they knew. They had a big book called JPRs. Oh, Carlos, thank you for donating to the channel. I appreciate it, man. Carlos just donated $4.99. And Emilio says, good morning. Emilio, good morning. They would take you under their wing. They would have a book called JPRs, Job Performance Reviews, and they were the person that was supposed to take you through and train you on everything that you were doing. Throwing ladders, pulling hose, donning and doffing your gear. They were the person that was supposed to train you and sign you off. Where I work now currently, they did it a little differently, where essentially, because it's a smaller department than where I first got hired, your crew is essentially responsible for you as their new guy to make sure you're trained up, and then your officer signs you off on your JPRs at the end of the year. And throughout the course of that year, that probationary period, you would go through and they would sign you off on different things. So every department does it a little bit differently. It really depends on where you go. Edward says, this will be handy. Thank you so much for all you do for us. I start on the 24th of this month. Awesome, Edward. Good luck, man. I'm glad you find these helpful. So if by chance you show up at a department and you aren't sure what your expectations are, some departments are bad at communicating this. Some departments are bad about, hey, as a new person, we want you to do A, B, and C. We expect you to be able to do X, Y, and Z by 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, whatever. Ask. you have to ask. Communication is a big thing. And if you don't ask, if you're ever unsure what your expectations are, you have to ask your officer. They will not baby you through this. They will expect you to be the one to ask. So I highly recommend, if you're ever confused or you're not sure what you're supposed to be doing, make sure you ask either a senior firefighter or preferably your officer. So why would they fail you, right? You put in all this time and effort. The city or whoever paid a lot of money to run you through the hiring process. They probably gave you some gear. Gear's not cheap. Why would they fail you? Well, the number one reason for probation is they want to see if you're going to fit in with the culture of that department. Chances are, if you get hired on a department, you've already gone through the fire academy. They already know that you can throw ladders, that you can crawl through smoke, you know how to don and doff your gear. That's the easy stuff. Obviously, you need to still stay sharp on that. You still need to practice on that. They're going to sign you off on that. But they want to know that you're going to be a good asset for them and you're going to fit in with them. Oh, Carlos, that's awesome. He said, give a t-shirt from their fire station in Mexico. If you guys want to email me, you can just email support@firefighternow.com and I'll give you a good address for that. Damon asks, how stressful is firefighting on 1 to 10? Mostly bad stress. It just depends on where you work. I applied for a summer internship for local. Should I follow up with them? Teddy, I'll get back to that question a little bit. I just want to finish all the probationary stuff first. So why else would they fail you? So they're going to fail you if you can't listen, right? If you can't follow directions. And you'd be surprised. There's a lot of people that really can't do that. They're constantly told, hey, you need to be here. You need to do this. You need to check the trucks this way. There's some people out there that just cannot follow instructions. And if you're one of those people, you're going to really struggle on probation. They're going to expect you to do what they tell you to do. If you're that whiny person, if you're that arrogant person that comes in and thinks, well, I have 2 years of experience from this department, so these guys or these girls aren't going to tell me what to do, you're not going to fit in very well. Different departments have very different cultures. Some departments are extraordinarily laid back. You come in, you have your cup of coffee, you hang out at the kitchen table for an hour. You do your work when the tones go off. You do a good job. You're expected to do well, but it's pretty laid back. Other departments are very militant. You have to be there 20 minutes early. You have your stuff lined up, folded, ready to go for roll call first thing in the morning. It just depends on the culture of the department. And so you need to make sure that you're able to fit in, and it's going to be a good fit for you long-term wherever you go. They might fail you from probation if, like I said, you have constant failures. They keep telling you what to do and you just can't sort it out. Or if there's some sort of catastrophic event, right? If there's something that you should have known to do or not to do and you just didn't do it, they might fail you for that. Chances are you're not going to find yourself in a situation where you can be in a situation like that. The reason being because you're on probation, they know that you're new, they know that you don't know a lot yet, so they're not going to put you in a situation, at least not knowingly, where the responsibility is going to fall directly onto you. So those are usually pretty rare. Most of the time, if you fail, it's because you're just not a good fit for the department. So if you do get failed, what resources do you have? What recourse do you have? What can you do? Where do you go from here? Well, I don't know enough about the labor laws as far as, if you're on probation and you get fired and you think it was unfair, can you file an action against the city? That I don't know. But to be totally honest with you, you probably don't have a lot of recourse. Again, it's going to be very situationally dependent. But what I want you to take away from this, though, is if you get fired from probation, chances are it's because they didn't think you would be a good fit in their culture. And that's probably a blessing. I get that probably hurts and that stings and that's difficult to deal with. Essentially the rejection of, hey, you were going to be on this department, now we don't want you anymore. But it's probably going to be a blessing in disguise. Most people go into firefighting to do this for an entire career, which is usually 25 years. And if you show up and in the first 6 months, nobody at that department can stand you, that's going to be a long 25 years. And like I said, I know it hurts and it's probably going to sting, but think of that as a blessing in disguise, because it's going to be pretty miserable to be that guy or that girl for 25 years. So then if that does happen to you, how do you overcome that? How do you move on from that? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to own whatever mistakes you made, right? They're going to tell you on your way out the door, hey, we don't think you're a good fit for ABC. It's not going to work out. We're letting you go. Good luck going forward. You need to really take a step back and sit down and think through what you did or did not do that you could have done better. And that's a really humbling experience, right? Nobody likes doing that. Everybody wants to be right. Nobody wants to be the person that's wrong. Try to look at yourself in the most objective form that you possibly can. Josh, thank you for donating to the channel. Josh just donated 5. I think that's pounds. Thank you for your videos. They've been very helpful. I'm glad you find them very helpful. And thanks for jumping on this morning. So I would highly recommend that you own whatever mistakes you made. Going forward, the worst thing you can do is speak poorly of whatever department that you just got released from. Going forward, if you plan on applying to new apartments or different departments, whatever you do, do not start talking poorly about that department. The fire service is so small and everybody knows everybody. And if you start speaking poorly about the chief or maybe your captain or lieutenant or other men or women that you worked with on your crew, I promise you, you are going to run into somebody that knows them, probably knows them pretty well, and probably has a good impression of them. And as long as if they don't know you and you're speaking poorly about people that they do know, it is not going to reflect well on you. It's going to make you look like you haven't been able to own any of your own mistakes. And it's going to make your task of getting hired onto a new department exponentially more difficult. So whatever you do, don't do that. And then if you do go through the hiring process with a new department, they're going to ask you about that, and they're already going to know about it. I promise you, if it's a local department and it's another, if you work for City A and City B that you're applying to now, talked about it. So whatever that chief at Department A that let you go had to say about why they let you go, you need to own that with the new chief or the new interview panel. They all know exactly why they let you go. And then you need to talk about what you learned from it, what you took away from it, how you messed up, and what you've done to remedy the situation. I've talked about this before in other videos, and this is kind of unilateral across the board. People don't really care what you say. People aren't interested really at all in what you say. People are more interested in what you do. So if you do something at a past department that's stupid and it lends you to getting released from that department, talk about what you've done to fix the situation. Maybe you weren't able to follow directions with starting IVs or donning and doffing your gear or whatever. Talk about how you've practiced, talk about how you do it now, and talk about how you're willing and able to do it however that department has done it. Getting released from probation is going to be tough. It's going to be tough to come back from. It can be very demoralizing. It can be very difficult, but it can be done. I have known people that have been released from probation at whatever their prior department was and then ended up getting hired somewhere else. It is a very tough road, but it can be done. So just so you know, keep those things in mind when you go into probation. There is another video on this channel, 14 things you should be doing on probation. You can search the channel. Since this is a live, normally I would put it up here and it would pop in and you can click on it. But search that. If you're ever not sure what to do, make sure you do those things. It's very, very important that you make a good impression during your probationary year. And hopefully you will do that. Do those things, talk to your officers, figure out what you need to be doing if you're not sure or you're not sure what the expectations would be. Jay Collins just donated $10 to the channel. Thank you, Jay Collins. I appreciate that. Yeah, so that's all I have on probation. I know some of you have asked some questions in here. Let me touch on a couple of these questions. Good morning. How stressful is firefighting? Teddy Gilmore asked, internship for a local department for a few days ago. Should I follow up them at some point, or should I just wait for them to contact me? Teddy, I'd give it at least 3 weeks. If you just did it a couple days ago, they're not going to get back to you yet. I'd give it 3 weeks to hear back. Bill says, I used your vids to sharpen up for a panel last week and landed the spot in the eligibility list. Awesome. Congratulations, Bill. Good for you for putting in the work. Guys, I love hearing comments like that of those of you that have used any of the materials on either the website, firefighternow.com, or the channel. And so please let me know. That's the entire reason I do this. So thank you for letting me know, and congratulations to you for being the person to put in the work and prepare and study. Jim Bob says, I know how to use fire extinguisher and put out a grease fire and do CPR. That's good stuff. That's important. Sheldon, is there a written exam at the end of your probation, or is it all based on how you perform? Good question. I've never heard of a department giving a written exam at the end of probation. Usually what it is there's a book of JPRs that they'll sign you off on over the course. Like, hey, today, can they throw a ladder? Can they pull a hose line properly? Can they do those things? And at the end of that time period, they'll have an entire book of signed off by your officer or a senior firefighter. I've never heard of a written exam. They might give you an exam on the maps. It's important that you study maps while you're on probation and you understand and know your district or your city, depending on where you work. So they might give you a test on that. Actually, they probably will. But as far as a general written test, no, I've never heard of that. Ashley says, thanks for the encouragement. Awesome. I'm glad you find this encouraging. Oscar says, can I be in the Army Reserve and a firefighter at the same time? Absolutely. I know lots of people are in the reserves and the Guard. Macho Man says, on probation, they don't have to tell you why they let you go. Could just be the guys don't like you personally. It's a possibility. Yeah, they don't have to have a specific reason, but usually decency would dictate that they tell you, hey, you're not here anymore. Good luck. See you later. Carlos, the firefighter from Tepatitlán, Jalisco, Mexico, the Lieutenant Garcia 07 and Christian are watching you in Mexico. Awesome, Carlos. I appreciate that. And thank you for the donation. Cage. Okay, this is good. Cage just wrote, I'm in the process for police department and it's very much the same. Yes. So here's the thing. If you want to be a firefighter and there's no tests going on right now, look for police department tests. The process is almost identical with police that it is with fire. Now, it doesn't matter if you have no interest in being a police officer. Get used to the process. Get used to doing interviews. Obviously, in a police interview, they're going to ask you more police-focused questions as opposed to fire-focused questions. But it's going to be the same. There's going to be a panel interview. They're going to give you a civil service test. They're probably going to do a polygraph. They're going to do a lot of those things. So if you want to get, as the saying goes, get your reps in, start taking police tests as well and start going through that process so you get used to it. Obviously, you're going to have to change your answers a little bit, but do that. If you have the time and money and the resources, typically a civil service test or an application is anywhere from like $25 to $50. But it's definitely worth it to get some experience and get some practice. Javon says oral board panel next Tuesday. Thanks for all your videos. Of course. Good luck, Javon. That's awesome. Christian Mockler says, as a retired company officer, I would tell my rookies also, I better not find you in the recliner. Need to be learning the city and the SOPs. Yeah, very true, Christian. So for those of you that don't know this, different crews and different departments have their own way of doing things. And a lot of them, once it's lunchtime, they might take a nap or something like that, or after 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock at the end of the working day, they're going to go watch TV. Obviously, you're going to be there for 24 hours. You're going to be there for an entire day. So this is essentially their home. You are probably not going to be, I don't want to say not allowed, but it will be frowned upon if you're acting the same way that somebody that's been there for 20 years is. You will be held to a higher standard as a probationary firefighter in that you are going to be expected to be learning all the time. Now, I'm not personally a big one. I know that I personally know people that have worked at departments prior that the senior firefighters would literally not even speak to them while they were on probation. And I think that's a crappy thing to do. I hate people that do stuff like that treat you differently because you're a probationary firefighter. You're still a part of the crew, but you will be held to a higher standard. You will be expected to be studying more. You will be expected to be learning more and training more and doing more because this is your first go at it. They want to see what your work ethic's like. So Christian, very good point. What is the most effective way to study maps? Austin Greer asks. Good question, because you're going to be doing a lot of that on probation. Break it down into sections. Break it down into neighborhoods. print off a blank Google map if you can do that. And wherever department you work at, I promise you, they have tons of maps of the city. They have to. And then if necessary, I know my officers, when I was on probation, would allow me to get in the car or get in whatever vehicle while I was on duty and go drive the streets, see how far apart the hydrants are, see, hey, this turn's kind of this, these streets are a little more narrow than those streets. There's mailboxes in this neighborhood, but not in that neighborhood. Just all the random things that you don't really think about as you're just driving around day to day. And you get to actually see the neighborhoods. And so I would recommend that. I would do it one neighborhood at a time. Sometimes they'll break them into sectors on the maps. I would just take one neighborhood at a time, memorize it, go drive it. On your way home from work or your way to work, hit a neighborhood, drive through the entire neighborhood, every street, so you get used to it. Hey, this house over here looks like it could be whatever. This house looks like it's vacant. It's good to know. Get used to it by doing that. Go actually see the neighborhoods. And then if every summer, a lot of departments, what they'll do is they'll check their hydrants. Go walk these neighborhoods, right? Driving through a neighborhood is one thing. Walking the streets of a neighborhood is obviously a very different thing. So those are some good ways to remember maps, but break it down by sections. Don't just take the entire city at once. It's going to be too overwhelming. Eric Kozinski says, thank you for all your videos. I landed a spot on the eligibility list for both counties and I applied for just waiting for a phone call. Awesome, Eric. Congratulations. That's awesome. I love hearing stuff like that. Abe with Shades says, what if you fail a drug test? Abe with Shades, if you fail a drug test, that's going to be hard to overcome. I made a video on this channel talking about how do you overcome past mistakes or things like that. And the only way to do that is to take full responsibility for it. So if you're asking for a friend, that friend should, first of all, stop using drugs. I mean, that seems like the most obvious thing. But second, that person is going to have to put some time between whenever they failed the drug test and going forward to their next department, right? If you apply to a new department 3 weeks from now and they say, hey, you just failed a drug test 3 weeks ago, chances are those drugs may or may not even be out of your system yet, and they already know. So other departments will know going forward. What you should do is you should, A, stop using drugs, B, wherever you apply, they're going to ask you about it. Say, yeah, it was stupid. Own that mistake. Talk about what you have done. And whatever, if this is you, or like I said, if you're asking for a friend, that friend should certainly go to maybe some sort of, I don't know if they need rehab or whatever, to show that they have taken some sort of action, some sort of steps to not do that. But that's going to be really hard to overcome. I'm going to be honest with you. Do you know any Chicago firefighters? I was told getting on would be like winning the lottery. I don't think I know any Chicago firefighters, Damon. Good question. I don't think. Abe Lachey's, what if you fail the test while in the department? Well, if you fail the test while in the department, depending on where you work, they might fire you. I don't know. That might be a fireable offense. I think there may or may not be some issues with the union. The union might try and protect that, or they might not. But yeah, doing that is, yeah, you can't be failing drug tests while you're on the job. That's not good. You put everybody else at risk. Julian says, hey, I'm an 18-year-old senior in high school. I'm almost finished with both Fire Academy and my National EMT. Would you consider my age being so young a positive or a negative? Neither. I think it's good. Go get on a volunteer department as fast as you can. Get as much experience as you possibly can right now. And the easiest way to do that is volunteering. Get onto a volunteer department, start doing the work with them, spend as much time as you can, learn as much as you can. I think that it's a positive in that sense. Some departments will look at it as a negative because you don't have as much experience because you're 18, but it doesn't matter. I mean, where I work, we've hired guys that are 21. A lot of full-time career departments require you to be 21 ahead of time. So over these next 3 years, between 18 and 21, get as much experience as you can. Get on a 911 squad if you're getting your EMS certification. So good for you for getting in there. Is there requirements to being assigned to a ladder truck? No, not usually. Ladder companies, engine companies, usually ladder companies are big, strong people. That's a very hard job, but there's usually no specific requirement as far as what you have to be able to do. totally different job, ladder companies versus engine companies, and I guess we can go into that in a later video. But I don't know of any requirements. Double A says, super nervous and anxious for the results of my panel interview, manifesting the approval of my fire chief interview. Yeah, I mean, it's a nerve-wracking time. I would give it a few weeks and follow up, but I'm sure you did all right. Make sure you keep putting in the work. And the fire chief interview, there is a video on this channel about what to expect in a chief's interview, so make sure you check that out. But good luck. Abe with Shades says, what do you do on your off time? Well, I work a lot. I'm in law school. I own a couple other businesses, and I have a family. So I stay busy with work and school and family. So I do quite a bit of that. Josh Carter asks, what if you fail a drug test? What if you fail a drug test? Apparently this is a thing. So if you fail a drug test, like I just told someone else, it's going to be very difficult for you to get beyond that. Stop using drugs, for one, and then wherever you apply to next, to make sure that you let them know what you did to remedy the problem. Meaning, maybe you need to go to rehab, maybe you need to go to some sort of counseling or something like that. I don't really know, but start with stop using drugs and then go from there. Daniel asks, are there any tips or ways for getting mentally prepared to join the fire service and seeing the accidents they see? Sorry if it is a bad question. No, there's no such thing as a bad question, Daniel. It's not a bad question at all. Are there any tips or ways for getting mentally prepared to join the fire service and seeing the accidents they see? I don't think so. It's just a matter of doing it. The best advice I can give you would be get onto a part-time or volunteer fire department. 80% of firefighters out there are part-time or volunteers. So I would get some experience and see if this is a field for you. If that's something you're concerned about, seeing maybe something that's very tragic or sad or maybe a little more gruesome. If that's something you might think you would struggle with, I would get some experience and go do it, and then see if it's for you. You don't want to go through this whole process and go to medic school and all this kind of stuff if 2 years into it you just say, whoa, not for me. But yeah, I would start by going to a volunteer department, get some fire certifications, and start running some calls. Is being 30 starting the hiring process a disadvantage for me, Justin? No, that's not a disadvantage. 30 is not too old. I didn't even get hired till I was 28, and I never worked at a volunteer or part-time department before that. So I know a lot of firefighters that got hired older, so it's not a disadvantage. Should the rookies bring something to the station on the first day? Or should the rookies bring something on their first day to the station? Yes. Good point. I forgot about this. I forgot to talk about this in probation. So when you first go on probation, you'll probably be required to do what's called 40s, which is you will work 40-hour work weeks for either 2, 3, 4 weeks. Every place does it a little bit different. Most places will do 2 weeks, 40-hour shifts or 40-hour work weeks. You'll do 8 hours a day. That way you get to know the different crews. You get to kind of meet everybody. You get to kind of work with everybody. Everybody gets to have a feel for you and what you're like. But yes, your first day on probation, you should bring something with you. And if you're on your 40s, and you're going to be, let's say you're at A shift, B shift, C shift, bring something every day to A shift, B shift, C shift. Could be something as simple as a dozen donuts. Could be something a little bit more like go to Panera or Bruegger's or wherever and get some bagels and some cream cheese, something like that. You don't have to go all out, right? This doesn't have to be crazy. You don't need to spend $500 on whatever. But definitely that's always a sign of goodwill. Somebody, I promise you, if you're on this live chat, I know you know what I'm talking about. Somebody will, no matter what you bring or how much goodwill you try and bring or show, someone will say something like, oh, you only brought a dozen donuts? That sucks. You should have brought 2. That's just going to happen. That's just part of the fire service. Don't worry about it. It will be taken positively. If you show up for your first day and you don't bring something, I don't want to say that it's not going to be taken well, but it will be noticed. So just be aware of that. So yes, I would bring something your first day. Also, at the end of probation, every department does it a little bit differently, but I know a lot of places when you finish your probation, what they'll do is whoever the rookie is that is on their last day of probation, they made it through, they're good to go, they're about to be a full-fledged member of the department. they'll do steaks for their whole crew. Obviously they're not going to buy it for every crew, but whoever their crew is, whoever they've been assigned to work with for the last year or 2 years or whatever, they'll buy steaks and they'll buy dinner for the whole crew, just as kind of a thank you, because it's they've invested their time and their trust into you. And as when you make it through probation, it's a really good feeling. And just as a thank you to the men and women that help train you up and get you up to the next level. So good question. Let's see. Damon Lennon asks, how hard is full-time firefighting on dating, marriage, and raising kids? It has its pros and its cons. Your schedule is good and bad, right? It's a double-edged sword. You're gone for 24 hours at a time, which sucks. But at the same time, you will have full days off to spend with your family or your significant other. What I would recommend across the board, be careful who you date, be careful who you marry, be very selective with that, whether you're a man or a woman. Make sure it's someone that is independent enough to handle being by themselves for a day. I feel weird even saying that, but I don't think it's unusually difficult. I know a lot of people talk about how hard it is, but I guess it's a really individual thing. But like I said, no matter who you date or marry, be careful about that, right? That's a really big, important decision. And God, whoever you have kids with, make sure you are very selective of who you decide to have a child with. But yeah, I don't think it's overly burdensome, but there certainly are pluses and minuses. What else was I going to say? Can you make videos on tips for passing certifications like EMS, paramedic, or simply talk about it now? Yeah, I'd have to sit down and think about some tips for going through those things. Man, as far as I'd have to sit down and think about different tips, but man, EMT and medic school is just a grind, especially if most people that get into fire aren't diehard into EMS. They do it because it's a necessary part of the job, as fire and EMS are integrating more and more. But man, it's a grind. Just keep showing up. I think it's William McCraven wrote a book called Make Your Bed, and he talked about how you get and I'm not comparing SEAL training to going through paramedic school. It's obviously not the same thing at all, but the principle that he talked about is you make it through difficult things and arduous things by just focusing on the day and not focusing on the entire process. So when you're going through paramedic school and you're working full time and maybe you have a family, or maybe you're doing whatever else it is that you're doing, and then you have to go do ride time, which is essentially free labor. It sucks. Like there's no other way around it. Just take it day by day. Just force yourself through it. Lots of people have done it. You'll make it through. But I'll have to sit down and think some more about how to some actual tips to get through it. That's a good question. Manu Tiddy, I'm not even sure how to say this name. Manute D for Life 1997 says, "Are you a TO?" I'm assuming you mean training officer. I am not a training officer. Let's see. UOK says, "Hey, love your vids. I'm not living in the U.S. and wish to enter the fire service there. If I get a work pass as an immigrant, would I be able to volunteer? How do certificates earned outside transfer?" Good question. So certificates, transfers, reciprocity, I don't know how those things are handled internationally. But what I can tell you is that there is, I think it's Pro Board, and there's one other, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, that deals with that state to state. For example, I'm a firefighter in Ohio. If I were to decide to move to Florida and be a firefighter, I would have to start all over with the fire academy, which is a real, I mean, I get why they do it, but it's also very annoying. So I don't know. I've had a few people from overseas ask about how to become a firefighter here in the U.S. All fire department jobs that I have seen require you to have a driver's license, obviously, because you might be driving the vehicle. I don't know enough about the immigration process, to be totally honest. That's a whole world I know nothing about. As far as when you can get a driver's license, I don't know. I'll be totally honest with you. I don't even know where I would point you in the right direction. I guess I would call whatever state you planning on moving to. I would call their fire marshal or call their Department of Public Safety and talk to them. They would be able to point you in the right direction the best. Ingrid Malberg, hey Ingrid, says, can you describe how you balance your time in class and studying for law school and your job? Yeah, I don't really have a way. I don't have a good answer. It's kind of like what I said with the paramedic school. It's just a grind. Sometimes you do it while everybody's asleep, whether it be in the morning or in the evening. You just get in there and do it. You have to be very selective about your time. I'm very particular about my time and what I do with my time and where I spend my time and who I spend my time around. I'm also very particular. Everybody has these things. Everybody has an iPhone these days. I have very few apps on my phone. I realize how much time I was wasting on my phone. So I'm kind of very strict about that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just have to schedule out time throughout the day. If I have some downtime at the station, that's what I'm doing. I'm reading, I'm studying, I'm working on whatever. So yeah, it's just a matter of finding time, actually writing it down. I don't have it in here right now, but I'm an old school with the paper schedule. I have an online one, but I do a paper schedule primarily, and I have everything that I need to do each day listed out. So that's how I do it. Everybody has their own way of doing it though. But yeah, you just start grinding through. What are the best ways to start firefighting? Connor Harrison asks. So I have a couple videos on this. Number one is called Future Firefighters Start Here. Number two is how to become a firefighter. And then the third one is 8 steps to become a firefighter, I think is what it's called, or something like that. I posted a couple weeks ago. I would watch those videos, but simply put, the best thing you can do is go find your local volunteer fire department and talk to them, because firefighting is a small circle. Everybody kind of knows everybody. So that's where I would start. Second, I would get your EMS certification as soon as you can and go from there. Jovan says, thank you. You are welcome, Jovan. Do you still have... Rashad, okay, so Rashad asked a good question. Do you still have the major subjects like math, mechanical knowledge? Thanks, Miles. I think what you're asking me, Rashad, is once you're a firefighter, do you still need to know those things? I think. And the answer is not really. As far as math, the most math you'll probably use as a firefighter is if you're a pump operator, calculating friction loss and things like that. But even then, once you have some experience as a pump operator, you kind of, man, people that have been pump operators for a long time, those people are magicians on those things. It is crazy what they're able to get these trucks to do. But as far as like basic math, mechanical, actual academic textbook skills, you don't really use them in the day-to-day. If you're an EMS and you're a medic, you might be doing some sort of math as far as med math, but they have so many apps and charts and things like that that make it easier that you might even not really use it that much. Brandon, during probation, is frowned upon to work on schoolwork once you've completed your tasks for the day. I'm hoping to get hired soon, but I also want to get my MBA. Great vids. Thanks for all the content. Good question. So during probation, is it frowned? Yeah, it's probably going to be frowned upon, which I probably fall more in your camp that I don't understand why that's as frowned upon. Your job is to do these things and learn these things. If I were you, while you're on probation, I would kind of lay low the fact that you're working on MBA stuff. I would really make sure that you know your job, you know your maps, you have good expectations of what they expect from you. And I would really, really, really focus on those things and maybe hold off on the MBA stuff. The MBA stuff's easy. I actually have an MBA as well. That's not going to be a big problem for you. You'll be fine. But during your probationary year, I would make sure whenever you're studying something, don't let people see that you're looking at something else. Again, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's good that people expand their knowledge and expand their skills and abilities in learning. I'm very much in that camp, but there will be a lot of people that look at you, see you studying something else as a probationary firefighter and say, well, this person doesn't care about the fire department, which is probably not true, but it's a lot of perception. So I would lay low with that. Damon asks, would firefighting be a bad career choice for someone that deals with moderate anxiety? I don't know. Questions like that, and I'm not knocking you, Damon. They're so subjective and individually based that I hesitate to tell people like, hey, this would be a bad career choice for you, simply because I don't know you, and people struggle and deal with all kinds of issues and hang-ups and things like that. So I don't want to necessarily say that it would be a bad choice for you, but you will, you're going to get woken up in the middle of the night a lot. I know poor sleep patterns can contribute to anxiety and mental health issues. You're probably going to see some tragic and sad stuff. I know that can contribute to anxiety and mental health issues. So if that's something you're concerned about, I would test the waters with a volunteer part-time department and go from there. UOK says, any state you suggest. Also, how much time do you spend as a volunteer department to transfer into full one? Can I enter a volunteer department without fire EMT training and get trained there? So I'll answer your last question first. Yes, a lot of our volunteer departments will train you up, but you have to make a commitment to them. Obviously, they're not just going to pay for those things for free, that you will stay with the department and run a certain amount of calls and do whatever over the course of that time. Is there any state I suggest? No, it's just, I don't know where you're from or where you live, but different states will pay differently. I have a video on this channel, what do firefighters make? And I break down some of the top paying states and cities. If that's something that you're after, I would check out that video. The Bureau of Labor Statistics puts out what fire departments or firefighters get paid state by state. And I would check that out if that's kind of your main driver. But is there one state that's going to be better than the others as far as firefighting? Not differentiators between them. Is driving the fire truck a choice or a requirement? You'll probably be required to take a EVOC course, Emergency Vehicle Operating course, where they'll run you through that and they'll give you the basics on how to drive a fire truck, ambulance, whatever. For a lot of departments, being an engineer or an apparatus operator is a testable position. It's kind of a promotion, and a lot of people will test for that. It's actually a pretty cool job. I know a lot of people get into firefighting and say, I'm not interested in driving. I just want to go into fires. But usually as they progress in their career, they become more and more interested in driving. But it just depends on the department. But you probably will be required to at least know how to do it, because there may be a situation where you will be expected to do that. Sketty Tacos, good name, says, thank you for all the videos. They've been very helpful through the process. Oh, thank you. Do you know if it is frowned upon to take Kelly days off as a probie if given the opportunity? Kelly days are mandatory days off. For those of you that don't know, I talk about that. I have a video on this channel, firefighter schedules and time off explained, where I kind of explain what Kelly days are. I'm sure if you're asking about Kelly days, I'm sure you already know what they are, but my guess is wherever you are is probably in one of those situations where you have the option to take the Kelly day or work it and get paid overtime. I don't see why it would be frowned upon. Honestly, I don't have an issue with that. There might be somebody out there that does, but if you want to take your Kelly days, take your Kelly days. Because once you become a full-time firefighter, everybody's going to be talking about how they want more time off and more days off, and more power to them. But you should be allowed to take days off as well. So that's kind of my take on it. Jay-Z says within the next year, I will have my paramedic, firefighter 1 and 2 and 2 years of volunteer experience. However, I will only be 20. Do you think my younger age will make it more difficult to get a full-time job? Nope. Nope. Usually you will have to be 21. Some places, I think somebody just jumped on here and said they hired people at 19. Once you get to 21, you're good to get hired anywhere, and having that experience already is going to be really good and very helpful. Austin Greer says, how do you get a firefighter's endorsement for your driver's license? I'm not sure. I've never heard that. I don't know what that is. Jacob says, how can I contact you personally to ask you some questions? I mean, if you have questions, Jacob, by all means, feel free to throw them out here. I don't, depending on what, I might not have time, depending on how in-depth your questions are. I have a lot of other stuff that I do outside of here. But if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to throw them out there. Is the firefighter 1 what you get after you finish the fire academy? Usually you get a firefighter 2 after you finish the fire academy. UK says states, as in which state is relaxed on regulations of international transfers. I'm trying to take a paramedic license, which takes 2 years of college here. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know who has. I would pick some states that you want to go, and I would call their Department of Public Safety. Honestly, that's the only. I don't know who has more strict or more relaxed regulations on that. Ronnie Kikowski says, I recently found your channel and your videos are so helpful. I'm currently an EMT and take my live burn in state practical for Fire 1 this month. When do you suggest applying for a career? Today. Honestly, I would be taking every single test that you can. Good question, Ronnie. I would take every single test that you can. And somebody else said something about the police department hiring process being similar. They're right. It's very similar. Take as many police department tests as well. Obviously, I'm assuming you don't want to be a police officer, which is fine, but get used to the testing process. Get used to the interview process, because their process is going to be almost identical to ours. So I would start applying and testing everywhere you can right now. But good for you for going through and doing the work. And I'm glad you found the channel. So it's been 47 minutes. This video was originally supposed to be about the probation. I'm glad I got to talk to you guys and answer some of your questions. If you like this, I'll keep doing this, where I'll do a video, and the beginning of the video, I go over whatever that topic is and then answer some questions afterwards. But thanks for those of you that donated to the channel. And hope you found this useful and helpful. And I will see you guys again. I will start posting more regularly as far as when the next live is, so people can kind of schedule it out. Like I said, this was kind of last minute, and yeah, so I figured I'd try something new. Maybe this is going to bomb. Maybe nobody likes it, or maybe people really like it. I don't know. But I really like being able to interact with you guys and answer your questions directly. Addie Prez says, I want to thank you for all your videos you made, especially for, oh, well, thank you. I'm glad you found that helpful. Seriously, I really love doing this, and I really love being able to converse with you guys directly. So good luck, guys, and I will see you in the next video or next live. Have a good day.